Why shouldn't you serve in isolation? In today's live stream, we're talking about serving without a partner, serving in isolation, or serving into an empty service box. This week on Instagram, I put out a post and I said one of the worst drills you can do to develop your serve is to serve without a partner. And we see it a lot. Tennis players, tennis coaches will get the player to stand on the baseline, hit lots of serves into an empty service box in order to develop the skill. And it's got quite a few comments. So I thought what would be quite interesting today is rather than me replying in the text comments, is actually put a video out and actually put some context to it as well. So I'm going to share my screen. So here's the post itself. I'm going to play the post in a few seconds when it gets back to the start, so you can listen to it. And then we're going to go through the comments. This is possibly the worst way in which you can practice your serve. The major flaws with this practice is it's isolated. There's no returner. Therefore, you've got no context if your serve is effective or ineffective. A real quick fix, stick a returner down the far side. Then you'll see if the serve is effective or ineffective. So that was the post. So again, quite a quick post. So what am I... In fact, let's not. Let's go through the comments. So we'll start with Matt at the top there. Thanks, Matt, for the comment. So if you can serve at 140, probably doesn't matter as much. Matt must have a huge serve. Matt can serve at 140, so he doesn't even need a returner. This guy just hits aces. Great. So probably 1% of the tennis network probably serve that quick. But even the top players, Roddick, Isner, they're serving huge serves. The ball does come back. I don't think any top player goes out with the idea or the intention of hitting aces. If you look at the stats, aces are quite low over the course of a match. Like, you don't hit a lot of aces. Obviously, some players do. People like an Isner might hit a lot of aces. I don't think many players go out to serve at 140 mile an hour. I don't think many players who are or coaches on social media will be getting their players serving that way. But Matt, I agree with you a little bit. Yeah, if you're serving absolute bombs, you got a huge serve, doesn't really matter. But again, a little bit debatable. So next one, a little bit further down. I disagree a little bit in that one. Quite a few people disagree with me. That's absolutely fine. Pretty good idea. Again, the level bit always gets me. On a certain level, you can serve on your own, and okay, beginners should serve on their own because we don't want to introduce too much pressure with a returner down the far end. We want to develop the technique. We want to develop the confidence. We don't want to returner down there. Absolute baloney, and we'll talk about that in a few moments. So you want to try and work on precision. You're talking about there. So slice serve out wide or serve down a tee. And to be fair to the person making the comment there, you could use a second bounce as a guide. So if you don't have a returner, then you could use a second bounce as a guide. And I'm not saying that you can't warm up your serve without a returner. I'm not saying that you can't just hit a few serves. But if you're trying to develop your serve, like even if you just put a couple of cones down, or like the person here says, you're trying to get the second bounce to a certain target. As soon as you put a returner in that situation, in that environment, you change the behavior of the server. Plus, you also have to think about the perception action coupling. So when we are trying to work out how to get the ball in the box, we will watch and look at lots of different things to judge what type of serve to hit, how hard to hit it, what spin, and all that stuff. But we use things like the returner's position. Are they hanging out wide? Are they covering the back end? Are they in the center? Are they further back? Are they further forwards? We'll look at the returner's body language as well. Are they confident? Are they on their toes? Are they really alert and really looking to attack the serve? Are they hesitant? Are they nervous? Are they scared? Are they quite rigid? We'd also think of the weather conditions. Yeah, if the wind's behind me, I'm going to serve differently than the wind's in front of me. I'm going to look at things like the score. So we will have all these things, our perception, what we see in front of us will have a massive impact on the action. So when you serve in isolation, you're not taking in any of this information. It's a controlled environment. You only got to worry about getting your ball in play. You don't have to worry about your opponent's position, how they're playing, their confidence. Don't have to worry about anything else. Yes, you may have to worry about maybe the weather conditions, but with no opponent there's no context. I can just hit serves really freely. As soon as you introduce a returner down the far end, either consciously or subconsciously, you're going to be taking in all that information, their positioning, how confident they look. After you hit a few serves, if they absolutely cream a couple, you're going to take in that information. You're going to have to adapt and change your serve. So by serving or practicing your serve in isolation, if you don't know if your serve is effective, you don't know how to adapt and change it. And that's why the whole nature of the post was, by developing your serve in isolation, you're pretty much wasting your time. And I get what this person's saying here. And it's stuff that I've done in the past, where you look at the second bounce. Some national governing bodies will use that as a play test. But once you put a returner there, you change the behavior of the player. It changes. The skill is different. And it's a bit like going to driving range in golf. I can go to driving range in golf today and I can tee off 200 balls. I can work on my technique, my form, keep my head still. But when I get out onto the golf course and I've got a variable target, if I've got a bunker, if I'm on a slope and my stance isn't perfect, like you don't go to driving range and you're teeing off a slope. Again, that's a waste of time. It's a business model put out for the golf community to make lots of money from a space. Like, the driving range is a fake environment because you're just hitting a ball. It's a different type of skill. Hitting a serve into an empty box is a skill. But once you manipulate and you change the environment by introducing a challenge down the far side, you change the behavior. It's basic. It's human behavior. And I just can't get my head around this whole idea of, we're trying to make these mechanical actions. We're trying to produce players that are machines, and it's repetition. So I kind of agree with the comment there. You could use stuff. And again, if you haven't got a returner on your own, like, I'm not saying don't do it. It will have a minimal effect, but it will be minimal. It's not going to have a huge effect on your serve development. I'm not saying that all, but again, there's a comment in a few minutes which we'll go on. So, does the returner need to be a robot? Didn't quite understand that one. To adapt to the level, well, you probably have a returner at the same level of the player. So I'm not too sure with that one. Reminds me of barking dogs seldom bite. Yeah, we did get quite a few weird comments. So again, this is a classic one from GB Tennis Coach. The whole point of practicing serves is to practice technique and placement. What is this obsession with technique? Because your technique's going to change. It's going to change, like I said, it's going to change based on your perception of the environment, what's happening in front of you. It's going to change based on the score. I'm going to serve differently if I'm 40 love up than if I'm love 40 down. There's going to be slight variations in this technique. Naturally, there will be, because my physical and mental skill or mindset at that time is different. If I'm in the third set, my technique is going to change. This obsession with getting the basics right and technique, it's an absolute bluff by coaches. And yet, placement, I could put cones down, and the clip of the boy is actually me coaching this way many years ago. I can put cones down, and great, you can hit those cones all day long. Put a returner down there or put some score pressure on it. The ability to hit those cones changes. So this whole thing about technique, great, but technique on its own is a movement. When you introduce pressure, it becomes a skill, and you can't develop skill without pressure. This is an isolated situation. Again, the player there in the clip, he's probably just warming his serve up. Like, he's not playing a match. He's got his top off. So please don't buy into this whole thing that you have to develop the technique first. The best way to learn the skill is actually doing it under challenge. You never tell. So you guys are telling people, well, it's just me, so it's not guys. You guys are telling people to practice their serve alone. I feel even better now about not signing up to your coach network, whatever it was. It wasn't a coach network, it was the Coach Tennis Academy, where we actually empower and give coaches scientific background of actually how to develop skill. So if you want to keep on doing your traditional coaching way, that really makes no sense, then feel free. But if you want to become part of my academy and actually learn effective coaching techniques, then head over to mytenniscoaching.com. But I'm not saying never practice your serve alone, because maybe your partner doesn't turn up. Like, at least go out and you can roll over a few serves. If you're trying to develop this, the skill, like it's pretty pointless. You're not going to develop the skill. You'd be very good at serving into an empty box. But if you're doing it just to warm up, if you're doing it just for something to do, then go all out. Like, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to develop the skill, this is not the best way. But I'm really disappointed that you're not going to join mytenniscoaching.com. What a really terrible video. I actually think it's quite a good video. And this one has a few more here. So it did mean a lot coming from a dance studio, but apparently this person's got a background in tennis. No context. Well, there is a bit of context, because I'm saying it's not very effective, because even in the video itself, like, if you're serving into an empty box, you generally don't know if that serve's any good. You may hit a serve and go, oh my God, that's a great serve. But then the returner absolutely crushes it down the line past you. So you think it's a great serve, but you don't know. Like the boy there, we don't know if that's a good serve or not, because it might not put their opponent under any pressure. And this is the issue, because players or coaches will do this type of drill and they'll think they've got a good serve. They go into a match and they get absolutely crushed, because they've had no context within training. Like, if I'm down the far end rather than filming in this case, and I'm returning, he's taking in that information, and we can talk about it in case of, well, that's not really put me under any challenge there. Can you serve in a way to put me under any challenge? And okay, not covering the reality of practicing without a partner. Now, I get that a little bit, but you have to remember that an Instagram reel, like, you need to keep it under about 25 seconds. So you just need to get your point across. Hence why I'm doing this live video now, so you can actually listen to my reasons why. And yeah, why would I be disappointed in a social media post? I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. Like, I don't put these posts out to get views. Don't put these posts out to make money. Put these posts out because I'm trying to put out actually relevant information that's going to help your players. Social media, again, I scrolled through it this morning. Most of it is full of irrelevant, pointless stuff. But there we go. So the next one's quite a long thread. So here we go. So my mate here says, both are helpful and will likely improve your serve. You don't need to instantly stop practicing your serve just because there's nobody down the other end. Again, I'm not saying that don't do it. I'm just saying, if you try and develop your serve, it's not a very effective way. Surely time on the court is better than no time at all. Yeah, but again, minimal. You could spend 20 hours practicing without a returner, and that's a lot of wasted time. Because as soon as you put a returner in there, like I've said before, the behavior changes. Behavior changes, skill changes, everything changes. And it's this whole mentality of more is better, which I think we get into in a minute. He says, I really must hate people hitting against a brick wall. Again, hitting against the wall. The good thing about hitting against the wall is you do get some variability. You might get some different bounces and stuff. But if we look at, again, perception is such a huge thing for tennis players that's not taught. You need to see where your opponent is. You need to see where your ball goes and the effect your ball has on your opponent before you even think about your next shot. So hitting against the wall, again, yes, it develops a skill. How transferable that skill is into an actual tennis game is minimal. But if that's all you've got, just use that. If you've got no mates and you can only practice yourself on your own, just do that. If you've got a ball machine, again, not the greatest way to practice. A ball machine's useless. But if that's all you've got, then do it. But if you're putting 10, 15 hours of that, then you'll waste a lot of time. I'm not going to go through my replies because I'm going to talk through it here. We agree to disagree. I'm not disagreeing with anyone. I'm just putting my point. And it's interesting with social media, especially if you go over to my YouTube about Monotoglu. Like it's okay for other people to have an opinion, and when you try and put your opinion back across and you give some context to it, people don't like it. So I'm not disagreeing with you. You can have your opinion. I've got my opinion, but I'm happy to back my opinion up with actually context and some actual, in this case, some scientific fact. The perception action coupling, it's science, it's human behavior. You can't argue against it. But people like to have their traditional ways. Again, I'm not, if you got no, again, if you got no people to play tennis with, then you can't really play tennis. You need two people to play tennis. You can't play tennis on your own. But if your mate doesn't turn up and you hit some serves for 20 minutes, then at least you get something rather than nothing. But don't spend 3 hours hitting serves. Okay, and this one I quite like. So, genuine question then. Two players have the identical access to training with a partner every week. Both spend the same amount of time working on serves with their partner. Player A also spends an additional 3 hours a week working on the slice serve out wide to the forehand on their own. Player B sees my video, doesn't bother. Well done, player B. Very clever. Both players are playing the same opponent in the weekend. Both notice the opponent tends to cover the middle of the court when returning on the forehand side. Are you seriously telling me player A is not going to be better than player B in this situation? So, what I replied with, which I'll talk through now. Let me just switch my screen back to me. Okay, so let's just talk through that. So player A trains an additional 3 hours on their own, slice serves out wide, because apparently the scout report says that the opponent stands center, leaves the forehand wide. Probably wouldn't happen, but let's do it that way. And player B watches me, my tennis coaching, and decides not to do it. They decide not to spend another 3 hours. Player B is very clever. So player A, what's the issue with player A? So player A has done more volume. They've hit more serves. Okay, they spent 3 hours hitting slice serves out wide because I think that's going to win them a point. So 50% of the time they're going to serve is from the juice side, 50 from the advantage. So that's an issue. The chances are, if the opponent is covering the center and leaving the space out wide, once player A hits 1 or 2 serves out wide, the return is going to change their position. So within 2 or 3 serves, the situation's changed that you've practiced 3 hours for. So you've wasted probably 2 hours, 50 minutes because the return has just changed. And that kind of highlights my point. You can spend all day hitting these targets and stuff, but your opponent is adaptable. They're going to change position. They're going to go further forwards. They're going to go further back. They're going to go to the left. They're going to go to the right. They're going to change. Therefore, you have to change how you serve. You adapt to what's in front of you. If you're practicing with no one there, you can't adapt. You can't change. You can't change your position. You can't change how you're making contact with the ball. So that just completely highlights my point. That player's wasted 3 hours practicing something that may get them 1 or 2 points. The other player who's practiced with a returner, they've now practiced with the adaptable changing environment. They're going to be more equipped than player A. Player A's just wasted 3 hours and probably spent some money on coaching in those 3 hours as well. So the coach is happy, but they've wasted their time. And then you can also look at volume and load, like hitting 3 hours worth of serves a week. Not going to be good for the shoulder, especially if they're serving like the other guy before, 140 mile an hour. So there's the context of the clip. That's my opinion why you shouldn't be serving in isolation. And I get it. You see all the top players with video clips at events serving in isolation. But it's interesting because if you look at Carlos Alcaraz, very rarely will you see him serve out returner. I know when I did the research for that video, I couldn't find a clip of him serving without a returner on Instagram. Didn't look at YouTube, looked at Instagram. But you go to these tournaments and you see the pro players do these type of drills, and you see them maybe do some basket drills or some drilling, but they're not develop. What I mean, they're not developing skill at that stage. They've already got the skill. They may be highly tuned F1 car. They're looking for that 1% difference, and they're just working on something unbelievably specific on that practice court for that next match. The majority of people watching this video, coaches and players, you will not be playing at that level. Therefore, you have to develop the skill within the context of the game. And if you don't believe me, just look at the perception coupling action. Just Google what it is. And you'll see how relevant it is for tennis. Because we can't play without an opponent. Even like I said before, things like ball machines, great for maybe getting a bit of a workout in, great for maybe hitting a few balls, not great for skill development, not great for developing skill that you need to play better tennis. Just a very clever marketing scheme. Goes back to the driving range in golf. Driving range in golf is the most pointless thing in the world. I know a lot of golfers might be watching this going, what are you talking about? I go to range all the time. Think about the first tee at a golf course. First tee, most nerve-wracking tee. Why? Because there's normally people there watching you. I remember when I played that course, the Warren, shout out to the Warren on the Wirral. You go and it's only a 9-hole course and there's a massive queue. You look at maybe 10, 15 people queuing up. Talk about pressure and challenge when you step onto that tee. No matter how many hours you will spend on the driving range, you cannot replicate that challenge of everyone watching you. And you can play all the mind tricks in your head and pretend people are there and stuff. You can do all that stuff. Be like a penalty shootout in football. You can practice all the penalties in the world until you get to that World Cup quarterfinal and you're taking the side and penalty. You can't replicate that challenge. And it's a bit like taking penalties about a goalkeeper. Why would you take a penalty about a goalkeeper? Because you use a goalkeeper to make your decision of where you're going to go and how you're going to hit the ball. But in tennis, we have this mindset of that's good practice. Why? For the reason we just talked about. Oh, technical, working on a technique. Great, but that technique will change when the return is there. That technique will change based on your fatigue. That technique will change based on the score. So the technique you're learning in that moment would be great if you can replicate that moment, which you can't in a match. So there you go. There's my little video for the week. Unfortunately, that guy didn't want to join my tennis coaching academy. He's quite happy doing the old school traditional way of coaching. Pardon me. If you are interested in this ecological dynamics approach, common sense approach, I call it these days, like we're trying to teach tennis within actually using tennis situations, head over to mytenniscoaching.com. And next Friday, there's no live stream next Friday because I'm doing a special live stream for my academy members where I'm answering all their coaching problems. So there'll be no live stream next week, but I may put up a YouTube video. I've not done a YouTube video, a normal YouTube video for a long time. So I may put a YouTube video up as well. But yeah, as always, these are my opinion. And if you are going to comment on my stuff, just be respectful. Again, the amount of time I get, you don't know what you're talking about is ridiculous. And it's sometimes difficult to remain bite my tongue because I could really unload on people. But that's not what I'm there for. I'm there to try and help. So please be respectful because I'll always be respectful for you. I may be a little bit cheeky in some of the comments, but there we go. Until 2 weeks' time. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to be talking about why Norway is probably way far and ahead sports youth developments than most of the world. And I'm going to share some insights into Norway's, not tennis youth development, but sport youth development setup and how amazing it is. So that's a 2 week live stream. Until then, I will